Hi, welcome to my podcast, Beyond the Leash. I'm here with a very special guest, Jack Morton. And on this podcast here, we're going to be talking about Jack's journey with his dog. Again, Jack's here, again, having gone through a journey with his dog, Kaiser. And Kaiser, and again, I talk about the 1 percentile dogs, the dogs that are the extreme of the extreme. I say in a good way, just means that they have a incredible high level of social need. So again, talk about dealing with aggressive dog cases. Well, this is if I was to pick a case here that was like the highest possible, case or the most severe case I've ever dealt with. Well, this is the case here. So again, I want to bring Jack on. He's very gracious with coming on, sharing his time with me. So my goal is, or my hope is that his journey will certainly help other people understand situation involving dogs, such as with Kaiser. So welcome, Jack. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Joe. I'm glad to be here. It's been a long time.
It's been a while.
Yeah,
I
I need to
remember.
get down there and do some training with you at some point.
Yeah. Well, I say you're at that. I mean, and I make the joke that when you spend 6 weeks with me, you're going to come out the other side as a trainer anyway. So
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
certainly you're certainly at that. I consider you not just a friend, but I consider you definitely with really good insight. Because again, I talk about the only way to possibly gain insight, the depth as to understanding dogs at a certain level, is to actually interact with dogs like Kaiser. I mean, it's like, so Jack, yeah, so just maybe tell us, those watching, a little bit about yourself and how you found me, and go from
So
there.
my name is Jack Morton, and I'm the owner of High Drive Dog Training and Morton Rottweilers. Uh, my journey to this whole process and why I ended up the way that I ended up was I ended up getting a puppy Rottweiler. He was a male. I had specifically gone after that specific bloodline that he was. I was going to build the kennel off of Morton Rottweilers off of Kaiser. Uh, we got him, and pretty much as soon as we got Kaiser, there was issues, and so I grew up with dogs, and I came up in a realm of where dog training was more of a crank and yank kind of style. That's just
Hmm.
how it was back then. People, there really wasn't a finessey thing with it. People didn't look at dogs like they do now.
Hmm.
So uh, I had started seeing those issues with him, and I was trying to figure out how to deal with it.
Hmm.
I knew that the crank and yank style wasn't something that was going to work with this specific dog. Uh, I could see it in his disposition that trying to work a 1970s style of dog training
Hmm.
was actually going to be more detrimental and probably make the dog worse.
Hmm.
So that set me on a journey to see what was new in the dog training world. And so I wanted to get him help.
And so, Jack,
I
how
was
how old was Kaiser at this time when you were like noticing that?
he was very young. Like his first two bites were uh under it was probably under a year. And
Hmm.
the first bite wasn't a big deal. It was just kind of like that somebody was going after one of his high value items. It got him on the hand. But the second bite didn't really break his skin or anything like that, but it was more vicious. And so
Hmm.
he was playing with his stick. A friend of mine went to get the stick. They were going to get the stick and play with him. As soon as she reached down to grab the stick, he got her on the hand.
Okay.
Uh, yep. And so that had told me. So at that point, he figured out that by biting, it got him what the reaction that he wanted. So
Hmm.
then it moved into other uh issues. And so the big issue that we had one time, he was laying on the bed and I had moved my foot or whatever, and he had just gone through the roof over it. So at
Hmm.
that point, I no longer allowed him to be on the bed.
Mhm.
I moved him into the crate, and then the whole crate thing became kind of weird with him. I'd never seen a dog like he didn't want to be in the crate, and so there was a major anti-crate attitude
Mhm.
with him. It's just for me, it was definitely very different because I had never dealt with a dog like that, and I'd been around dogs my entire life, and so I had no understanding of what was going on.
Did
And so that
Jack?
basically sent me on my journey to find a dog trainer.
So Jack, like, did you have a sense that Kaiser was like a high drive dog or a dog that you would?
At the time, I didn't understand that that scenario. I didn't really come to understand like the high drive and the alignment with nature uh, process until I had gotten with you and we'd had long conversations about the alignment with nature and how dogs align. I'm very I'm a strong believer in alignment with nature with dogs. Like
Mhm.
I know now from having as many dogs as I have,
Mhm.
how that alignment works with dogs. Not
Mhm.
every dog is aligned on a higher level. Like I have a male right now, Bosco, his
Mhm.
drive and his alignment with nature. It's not a Kaiser level by no means, but it's upper echelon of all the other dogs.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so again, I didn't understand any of that until I just knew there was a problem and I didn't know or understand it. And it was really frustrating
Mhm.
to because I was trying at that time I was trying to figure it out on my own,
Sure.
thinking that
So I guess question. So you, without not mentioning trainers' names or anything, so you had probably some encounters with some looking for answers with
a
other
lot of
others.
them, a
Okay. Well.
lot of them, and that was that, and not even just like trainers within my area. I had gone online and had been talking to, and you've done reviews on a few of them. Yeah, yeah.
Sure.
And I'm glad I had no dealings with them after seeing
Mhm.
them in real light because
Okay.
a lot of those trainers, the the videos and the things they post in a certain way are things that make them look good, but when you're really behind on the closed doors kinds of things,
Mhm.
uh, it's a very different game. And I already knew from understanding Kaiser, I understood him to a certain degree that none of those, the prong collar, like the e-collar didn't even really work for him. So the choke collar, all those things, the stuff, none
Mhm.
of that really worked for him. And
Sure.
so it only made matters worse. And so there had to be, for me, I believe that there was a different way of dealing with him. And that's what led me on my real journey to find that person
Mhm.
that understood what was going on here. And nobody could give it to me. Like I literally had a dog trainer say, well, we can put the bite suit on and beat it out of him. And I spent a lot of
Oh
money
yeah. Oh,
with that
absolutely. Yeah.
dog trainer. Yeah.
Wow.
And actually Kaiser had bit one of their trainers specifically on the arm.
Mhm.
And and the thing was I knew my dog and I explained to the dog trainer that he's going to bite you, and their reaction to me was, oh, he'll never bite me. And like this dog will definitely bite. He's bitten me. I mean, I've been bitten by him numerous times.
Well, speaking of
So
that, let's
I knew if
share.
he would bite me, he'd bite other people.
Oh, absolutely. So let's
Yeah.
share. Actually, when we talk about, let's show. I'm going to show the video here, just so people have a understanding context here about, what, you know, in terms of the first video I saw here. You see it up on the screen
Yeah, that
here.
was the first video I sent you
Mm.
to show you my problem that I was dealing with.
Okay. So just, yeah. So Jack had sent me this video again, just because, again, I want to see what I was dealing with. So let's watch this, and so everyone can kind of see the level of Kaiser.
And at the time, I was dealing with a dog trainer, and this is how this dog trainer told me to work him, which was non-workable for him. and really, he's angry because he's not getting his way.
Yeah.
So
Oh
we're
yeah.
having an issue here because he's got his muzzle on, uh,
Mhm.
which was the only smart thing that dog trainer told me to do.
Well,
Everything
yeah. I
else was a
mean,
train. Yeah, everything
otherwise,
else was a train wreck.
yeah, you'd be, yeah, seriously, yeah, someone would be seriously hurt. So yeah, muzzle's about
So
control.
crank and yanking, that's the old school crank and
Yeah,
yankings kind of
yeah,
style,
yeah. So again, yeah,
which
this
is
is
not,
before, yeah, this
yep,
is
non-workable.
before we met.
Yep, yep. This is before we met. Like I said, I had already dealt with a dog trainer on this specific, and so I was using that person's techniques
Mhm.
when I was doing this, so I could show you what was up.
So yeah, so this is a really good kind of example here of, what, again, what you're dealing with here. So let's go back to the screen here. There we go. So yeah, there you go. So that's like, yeah. So like I said, you sent me that video. I
Yep,
knew right away. I said, okay, this is, and how I call. I mean, I picture that moment of the movie Twister, right, where Bill Paxton's telling a story of, the extreme, walking
right.
towards the tornado and tossing the bottle, into the tornado. This is like, yeah, I knew when you and Kaiser showed up here with me that definitely we're dealing with the dog that, again, the highest level. And so here, so
Yep,
again, when you showed up, and again, part of the journey here was like, typically, I'm doing a board and train for, dog owners. It's like, it's a 2 week board and train. I stop it
right.
at the 2 weeks for a reason, because there has to be a transition over to the focus. Needs to come back over to the owner. And typically, that goes fine. Never had a board and train where it was so extreme that I had to actually have the dog owner attend full time. The process changed through the owner based, again, on this level of extreme aggression. But this is the first time I had to do that, because, again, what happened was Jack showed up at Kaiser and dropped off Kaiser. You were attending a meeting, and your plan was to come back
Yep,
during the board and train, right? And then so she dropped Kaiser off, and I had, using the crate. But as soon as you left, right away, or pretty quickly, I start sensing, okay. And then, when you were already several hours into heading back to your location, I discovered this is not going to work. This isn't going to work out well, because what happened was, and I brought a tool here to demonstrate, like trying to even get in that crate, because Kaiser was so reactive in that crate, so just really aggressive, that even reaching in or doing anything, even to get him to the bathroom, was not going to work. He was definitely very, very highly charged up. Here's the tool here. People can see the little. Actually went down to Walmart and purchased one of those little grabber things that you would use for picking things up, because I was thinking, how can I get, because there's no way I can get my hand in there. I cannot get in there to get the food dish or the water dish out, or in. Couldn't get the muzzle off. It was really, really problematic. So I said, well, I'll use the grabber to do it. But the problem is, even when I put that grabber in, Kaiser had unleashed at such a high level that he went for the grabber and just bent the grabber against the side of the crate. It was so extreme. I'm like, okay, this is really going to be a major, major issue here. So again, and I felt bad because I knew you were already on your way going to where you're going. And so I called Jack up. I had to call Jack up, say, Jack, you're going to need to come back and figure this out. We got to figure this out together, because there's no way I'm going to be able to manage this, because he was so. I even at the time brought down the associate trainer that was helping me. I was working with Anthony, and it was funny because we had a moment where Anthony came into the training facility and Kaiser was in the crate, and and Anthony was like, "Well, I can try." I can, and like Kaiser looked okay for a second. And I'm like, Jack, I'm like, oh, well, okay, go ahead. I knew right away what was going to happen. And Anthony approached the crate and started to lean over, and Kaiser just unleashed. And Anthony went flying back, like startled, like saying, okay, no, I guess, this ain't going to work. Because he's like looking for some way, maybe he can, have one of those moments where, hey, I can do this. And then that's where I understood, no, this is going to be definitely. So anyway, so I called you up, Jack, and you came
Yep.
back had a conversation where kind of worked it out, say, listen, this is the way to process this. And again, even when I'm dealing with, going to sessions or dealing with dogs that have hit the aggressive level, there's a certain percentage of dogs that I cannot interact with initially because it's going to be, they go into high of a challenge state. And so even though I could handle them, you wouldn't offer the clarity to the dog owners to be able to really understand or see what they need to do. So the smart way to do it is to manipulate the relationship with them, or because the dog has control through them, it keeps things leveled down. And so the same
Right.
idea here, when you show back up, it was like, okay, Jack, if you can stay, with Kaiser, we can do this together. And of course, being able to, process this through you and keep the level of challenge, down.
Right.
So yeah, so talking about, like I said, in terms of processing, so keeping things leveled out, being able to find the way forward, Jack. I guess that's the thing. We had a conversation, and you were willing to say, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to stay here." And I guess part of the comment, I remember you saying, "Hey, I'll do whatever it takes." I mean, and that's amazing. I was going to say, for that level of commitment, Jack, from anybody, especially, to be able to willing to say, "You know what? I want to fix this." That was the whole kind of tone that you took even when you showed up with Kaiser, which, highly commendable. Because most people aren't like that, Jack. You know what I'm saying? Dealing with a
Well,
dog
that's
like
that. Yeah, and you're right on that. Most people would have gave up on a situation of that. And I know a lot of people that have had not as bad of dogs, and they've all said the same thing, that they just euthanize the dog and let the dog go. But that just wasn't an option for me. And so
Mhm.
I personally, for me, I needed to figure it out, and I needed to understand what was really going on with him.
Mhm.
And I don't think that it's necessarily that you can figure it out per se on that level, but you can make things workable, and you can have a better understanding of why the dog maybe is at such a level. He's just, once I understood the alignment of nature with dogs, I had a better understanding of him. And that helped me work with him and work through the things that we needed to work through.
Mhm.
And things got better. They weren't perfect, but they steadily every day we made progress. And that to me showed me a lot that it can be fixable and workable.
With the right, yeah. And so the whole methodology here, and again, this is part of it, is like, so when I say interaction based, right? Is this whole thing not using treats, not bribing dogs that way to actually connect. So part of it's like connection, interaction. One of the big themes, Jack, in which we worked on a lot during the training process, is being dialed into Kaiser's state of mind. Like as he was
Right.
looking, or as he was fixating, dealing with that, being able to, intercept. So the whole thing with like connecting dots and kind of bringing everything together. So I'll bring up another video here in a second. So again, one of the things, crate reactivity. Again, we talk about Kaiser's level of reactivity with the crate, which I'm going to show the crate, just part of the crate video here. In just one moment here as we're talking, I'm going to bring it up. And let's see here, the crate, here we go. So here's, this one's going to pop up here. Just this will give you a little bit of a, just an idea of how we dealt with.
And you hovering over, you're gonna be standing, not in front.
So here you see Jack standing here in front of the crate. And again, Kaiser was very, very reactive to the, inside the crate.
You can put them in the back position first. Okay. Right back. You gonna take it? Yeah, it's already going. Okay, back, just back. Back. I want to hear it. So I come in, open that crate door, that water in, go back and right the back. Close it, yep.
Now, right here, Jack, I don't remember having to actually have Kaiser turned around opposite in the crate.
What's that? I'm sorry.
Oh, are you able to see the video?
Yes.
So I was gonna say, so on this situation here, Jack, actually having Kaiser turned around the other way in the crate, which was part of that whole thing with how
Yep.
reactive he was. Remember that with the food, with the
Yep.
dishes. So part of that is actually here.
Yeah, open the crate and water up, close the crate. Yeah, so the next here is you're in control, it's the same thing we did with the control surrender exercise. Okay. That you're in control of making sure that Kaiser is going to accept the water being put inside.
So the imagery here, Jack, like I said, you have the room. This is where, again, talk about the remote collar as a secondary tool. So this is a good example of it, of that level where, starting to work or move through this level of reactivity where you get dogs that are forward aggressive. You get dogs where even with Kaiser, even getting in that crate or even that crate door, where he was just like so charged up. And so here, working this so that, having him face the other way and working that remote collar to intercept certain moments. So this is why I talk about one of the themes are being dialed into a dog's state of mind. So really keying up on, interpreting and knowing when to intercept, to bring him into a level of agreeableness, right? Of being calm. So let me transfer back out here. So I just want to show a quick little screenshot of this or moment of this where we piled a lot of work into like everything, in terms of just
Right. I mean, we got to the point with that that working to where I didn't like there was no muzzle involved in it, no more
yeah,
collar was involved in it. I could just tell him back, and he would turn around, lay down, and face the back of the crate beautifully. So he got it. He knew what was up, and so that was a nice thing about it. And I think a lot of people miss the point with the e-collar. It's not. It's okay to use it, but it's not the end all, the be all, and it shouldn't be used as an ongoing
no.
tool.
I talk about that, like for it not to be a pivot point. In fact, one of the things, and again,
Right.
I talk about just during had the debate with a, balanced dog trainer here a few days ago. And that's one of the themes is about the role of the remote call, as a pivot point. But we talk about, making sense to the dog, right? The role of influence through the interaction part of it. It's like having a personal
Right.
conversation. And then therefore, then we use the e-collar as a secondary tool, such as what we did with Kaiser, like for the crate.
Right.
It makes more sense to the dog because
It's
if you try to
safer, and then it breaks that what I call stinky thinking.
thinking,
So
well, that's what I call it, thinking. That's right.
and so when you and that's something I think a lot of dog owners need to figure out, because they need to be in tune to the dog so that you can, like you were saying, you can disrupt that stinky thinking before it becomes full on stinking thinking. And so once you disrupt that, and that's how, like when I'm working one of my other dogs and I'm having like head to the ground issues or whatever that may be, I'll use that tapping that that we work with, the tapping motion with the leash, to disrupt that stinking thinking,
That's right.
and to bring the mind back to where it needs to be, and to regain your control of the dog, to put him in the here and now.
Yeah, because you mentioned that before. It's not the cranking and yanking, right? The cranking and yanking
Right.
means you're waiting too long, right, Jack? Like you're waiting
Right.
for, so if you're ahead of the curve of a dog's mind, just as they're starting to have those thoughts, right? Because then this is where, again, talking about you're in the middle of a relationship problem. That's one thing that people don't really kind of key up on, this whole mind and body connection part, is that you have to be proactive. You want to interact with the dog.
Yep. That's the key, is you have to be in tune to your dog. You have to be proactive, and you really have to be watching for the things that are going to get ready to play out, and cut them out as quickly as possible. So for instance, like I can't explain it enough to people. If you have a dog pulling on a leash, it's very simple to fix that. Slow the dog down and put the dog in a sit position until that clears up. And you might have to do that 100 times, but it clears up. But you got to have persistence and patience and take the time to do those things. But I guess we live in a world of instant gratification, and unfortunately, with any dog, there's no instant gratification.
Well, there isn't, and that's the thing that goes into this whole remote collar thing. Why dogs will take the pain, they'll push through that collar, because when it doesn't line up, when when the dog figures out, say it's more about the device, right?
Right.
But the person isn't being seen the right way. So the dog's saying, you know what? Yeah, I'll be a little better when that collar's on, but and I had that situation in Canada with that lady that was I helped her. That's what happened. Her dogs, she had a pack of dogs, a couple pit bulls, and a jogger came along the property line. She thought she had control. She had remote collars on all these dogs. And then there's that moment when the dogs push through.
Yeah.
Like they get, and
Yeah,
then
I've
they
seen
took the
that.
pain.
I've seen that a lot where they just the underground fences and they just no.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Because,
most of the time with dogs, depending on their level, you don't all you really need to do is vibrate them.
yeah, that's right. Once, yeah, especially once, and that's why I say, Jack, once the method, the interaction part of it is, fading you in the right way, then that's where the vibration, you can switch over because now everything's making more sense to the dog.
Right.
So the collar makes more sense. You can get away typically with just vibration because it's about how everything filters through the individual through how you're interacting with. So to tell people, motivating a dog to respond right away in the middle of a relationship problem using treats, that's a bad thing to be doing because what you're doing is you're not considering, hey, you're in the middle of a relationship problem. It's not about the motivator is the relationship. You
Yeah.
shouldn't be, it's then you want to tag the interaction part of it onto. It's like a parent who is interacting with a selfish child, right? They're engaged, they're dialed in, they're in their airspace, like where are you going, who are you hanging out with. So a lot of the example I use, Jack, and I know you do too, is about the parent is like being a parent, a parent
Yeah.
that is that example really lines up. So I'm going to show another video in a second. You can keep talking if you want, a view of another moment where Kaiser's kind of flashing over as we're training him. Again, just to really kind of demonstrate that, this was definitely a special case here. And there's a moment here in this video where we'll talk about when the flashover actually happens here. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Let me know when you can see this video here, Jack. All right, can you see it?
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's a short video. So I just stop here. So this is Jack here. He's out with Kaiser interacting. This is Anthony, associate trainer, standing beside Jack here, helping to guide him. And I'm sitting at the desk. Okay. The reason it's important, you're going to hear me say something here near the end here before the flashover. But here we just have Jack, you're doing the interaction, part of it with Kaiser. You're doing the push pulls and and Kaiser again. This is all about, again, I talk about one of the big themes here is clarity. Clarity through what you're providing to Kaiser in terms of how you're interacting with Kaiser, because you're going to see that moment here in the moment. As So right here, really good. So like watching Jack doing the method, really good, nice and clean, right? The push pull, and because here's the thing, Jack, and you can see here, you're looking at, right? You're looking at Kaiser's in terms of state of mind, right? You're looking at
Right.
not just physical, right? You're actually dialed into, right? Almost like the thought process. Am I correct?
Yep. And from that, because of that, I already had knew what was getting ready to play out, that there was going to be an issue play out, and wasn't sure what was going to make it happen, but I
Yeah.
knew that it was getting ready to happen. So I was
Yes.
I was getting ready for that.
You can, yeah. So you knew, right? So because that's the thing
Yep.
about being dialed in, Jack. Like that's the thing about you definitely can see it. So we'll keep this going. Yeah, you're right. So right here, just I want to break this down for people a little bit too. So right there, Jack, you gave a little nudge to Kaiser. You don't want him looking at, even though Anthony's the trainer, right? You want him to be slightly inward to you. Because when I talk about the tangible part of this, how can you tell that you're, as called, faded in, focused the right way? coming through again, intentional control, right, through the leash and through the collar, and that's like a baseline, right? That's something that's happening, when you're dealing with again a relationship problem. You want that. It's like, I call it like a parental baseline, right? Gives the dog, it helps take stress off the dog. But then, through how again that baseline, you're working off of that with those moments, right? So keep it going.
And the whole time I could feel it in him.
Yeah,
I,
so
I could feel it. Yeah, I could feel it in him, just waiting for it.
So yeah, I was gonna ask you. So how did you feel? Like, it's one thing for me to talk through it, I guess, Jack. But as you're interacting with Kaiser, what was your kind of thoughts about everything in terms of? I'll just keep it still here, the picture of this.
Well, I could, as I'm working him, and Anthony being next to him made him uncomfortable. Like he wasn't feeling that of it. It was okay and it was workable, but I could feel it within him that he was waiting. He was just waiting for the right moment. So there was a plan in his head. I knew it, and so I was just constantly paying attention to that whole thing because I wanted to like try to curve the stinky thinking before it got to full on stinky thinking. So, and as you'll see in the video, what happens, it plays out.
Oh yeah. But you notice your technique here. I mean, this is like years ago, right? But I can look at this now, Jack. Say you got really clean, clear method. You know what I'm saying? It's just really, really clean, sharp, clear. I mean, it is what it is. In transition here with Kaiser, but I can't speak more highly of just how you're touching. There's no rubbing. It's very clean. You can tell where your head is. Your head's half cocked towards Kaiser.
And that's a perfect set too.
Yeah, So it's just it's so clean.
That's a perfect set.
Because the thing is, Jack, when you're doing this, I knew right away you were so focused on learning, like really, you were so just like committed. You were so like, I'm going to do what I need to do here. But you were so much about just making sure you were doing everything right, like and that shows, So
yeah.
So putting that down in there is that was his kryptonite. Like that was his hate of more than anything, more than the crate, more than anything. Him doing a down was like probably and the hardest thing ever. And so when I finally got him to do a down just by saying down and not having to do anything, was a super big deal to me because I knew how much he disliked downs. Like I have not had another dog in my entire life that literally despised having to go down like that.
Because as you know, Jack, because it has those ingredients in there of control and influence.
Right.
It's not like you're not using a treat to generate a down, because that's meaningless. You know what I'm saying? That's just a response. Here, you're bringing a dog under intentional control and influence, a dog at Kaiser's level, and so again, you're bringing a dog. And so here's, again, very clean. And, because you only say down one time as you're pushing. I talk about, when commands start to come online in terms of perception of dog changing after about day 12 of a 14-day board and train process. Then you start to lean on those words a little bit more. But yeah, you're right. As as we move forward here, people will be able to see a video after you go home with Kaiser of off leash commands, but the right way, not based, Kaiser's responding, not based on getting a treat or through, again, perception not changed the right way. It's total transition, which is really, when you look at, again, knowing what I know with the level with Kaiser, where you came from to actually get to that point where you're off leash the right way, it's amazing. It's a testament to how much you cared, how much effort you put in, Jack, everything. So all these moments to me just is like me looking back on this is kind of like a going back in time, is a fantastic, every movement you make is like, for me, is great because I know that, you were willing. Now pay attention here, because this is gonna cause the explosion here. Anyone watching this? So you see Anthony now. So what Anthony's doing is, this is what I call surrender and control exercise. So getting Kaiser to accept contact through another person. Okay, which is a big deal. Dogs don't want to, right?
Yep, that
It's
was a
like they
big deal
want.
to him. Like he didn't
Yeah.
like it at all.
No, didn't like it. So this is like pushing the boundaries. It's like we're pushing the envelope here when Anthony's touching. But here's the point, because this is you'll see the flash over here in a minute as we round the corner here, as they move forward a little bit further. But so I talk about clarity. In fact, I put out a couple videos on my Flipping the Script series where you see dogs get triggered off from trainers petting on them or rubbing their hands, because that's the thing about, I talk about emotional connection, what petting represents at a certain point with a dog. And so, when you're bringing a dog under intentional control through the method, and then you start to rub on the dog, at the same time, it's like fire and gasoline. Okay. It's going to ignite. And that's what's going to happen here. It's going to ignite the more, because what will happen here, and as you'll see as we go along, is pay attention, because it's important that you do not rub on the dog on the dog when you're bringing the dog under control at the same time. Not at this level, this type of aggressive dog. See right here. So Anthony, I'm sitting here, but when you push, you shouldn't be moving your hand. And I understand this isn't a criticism of Anthony. Like these things can happen, but you see him just multiple pushes and stuff. You want to just push in, hold your hand steady influence, and then remove it.
Yeah, he slides it back.
Yeah, and so moving that hand around is not something you want to be doing. Because one could argue, you want the dog to accept everything, right? So even the movement, but at first, when you're first starting to transfer this, when you start,
right,
it's about being successful, right? So you don't, at a certain point, nothing should matter, right? But right now, when we're doing this, it's just like you want to ease into it. You want to just slowly transition. You don't want to be moving the hand all. You don't want that, because again, because at first you need a lot of clarity. And how I explain it, Jack, is like coming into full agreement with the right parenting style, all the themes that go along with that, versus bouncing back and forth between two parenting styles. Here it's the same thing. You want a clear message, especially.
Take over that. Tell me what you want. Whether it's touching a leash, touching anywhere, the bed, whatever it is, you control it. Yes.
Say, Jack, nice, clean, really nice, clean technique.
Down. Down.
Now there's the mistake. Okay.
Right.
Anthony is petting, I don't know, starting to pet the top of. Now you're going to hear me say, I know what's coming. You're going to hear me say, because I knew what was going to happen. Don't pet, but it's too late. Okay. But I'm saying, you'll hear me say that in a second.
Don't pet. Don't pet.
So right here, you saw it flash over, rear up, right? Because that's the thing. It's like just like gasoline. And Jack, Jack, could you feel that coming? You already said.
Yep. I as soon as I seen him reach for the head, I'd already said something to him not to touch him on the head, because he had reached out for it. I already knew that, like, that was like an area and that he just didn't let anybody, like, I couldn't even pet him on the head. Like, that was just an area that for whatever reason, it was really weird. He didn't allow that to play out. And so as you can see, like, I was ready for it, because the way I have my hand on the leash. Yeah.
So the way to look at that, though, is like I said, once a dog hits a level like Kaiser, the petting, the rubbing, even on the head, will trigger it off. You understand? Like, because it's like, it almost like they hit such a level of disrespect in a way, like, because that it's like a drug. It's like gasoline, right? So right away, again, as soon as I felt, I understand, like, but that's what happens. It's the whole thing with emotion and that connection, and then it reaches such a high level that clarity is so important. So back it up here just slightly.
Don't pet. Don't pet. Don't pet. Don't pet.
Yeah. So again, just another, really good, because the themes I talk about, and you see other examples of that with other dogs I kind of showcased on my series there. But yeah, it's just like it shows you how fast, how quick, Kaiser
Yep,
just
it's quick.
fast.
And he was a fast dog. Like he when we were doing a training with another trainer, he had bit the trainer, uh and hit her forearm, had bit her 3 times. And
Hmm.
the only thing that had saved her was I work the out command on all my dogs. Like that's usually one of
Okay.
the first things I work on because they eat grass. And
Hmm.
so I'm always telling my dogs out
Hmm.
to get grass out of their mouth. So he had a really good understanding of the out command. Like we had really worked on that a lot. So when he had bit her, uh, I had said it on the first bite. I seen it coming, and but he was so quick at it. And the thing was with it, I spent a lot of money with that trainer. And I literally told that trainer that he was an aggressive dog and he was a biter. But
Hmm.
not once, not one time did they ever say, "Oh, well, maybe we should put this dog in a muzzle so nobody gets bit." No, they didn't do that. So, they e-collar, prong collared him, treated him, and all they did was elevate his level of stinky thinking all the time. And the
Hmm.
day that we had gone into the training session that day, he was already jacked. Like you could
Yeah.
see it in him, I could feel it in him. I like, hey, maybe we should plan for another day of dog training
Hmm.
because Kaiser's really amped up today. I
Hmm.
just I'm not feeling good about this as a dog owner. But
Hmm.
they were like, nope, we're good. We'll take care of this. We got this. And
Hmm.
then that pretty much ended it with those people.
Hmm.
And that really at that point had set me on a really hard quest uh, to find what I felt was the right way to handle dogs. And that's something I'm very glad that I did because it's worked out very long term for me. I use it in all my dogs.
Hmm.
And I'm very grateful for that because it works very well. And it's
So I guess,
reasonable.
yeah.
It's reasonable.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah. Yeah.
fair. It's the way
Yeah.
it should be.
Hmm. Yeah, I was going to ask you that. So when all this stuff was going on with Kaiser before you met me, I guess deep down you knew there had to be an answer, right?
Yep.
Probably felt
Yep.
there
There
had to be.
had to be there, but you know what? The thing was about it, I had spent so much time looking,
Hmm.
uh, and I actually didn't even find you until I was talking to uh what was his name? He was the dude that got raped by the Bigfoot.
Oh,
Uh
Peter Kane.
yes.
There
Uh
you go. Yeah.
I think I had seen a video or something, and I asked him about you,
Hmm.
and I knew he was non-capable. Like I could just tell by his videos and the things that he did,
Hmm.
that this was not a level of the dog that he had ever
Hmm.
experienced, and so
Hmm.
I knew he was definitely not somebody
Hmm.
that was workable. And so then when we had talked about you a little bit, uh, I spent more time looking at your videos.
Okay.
Um, and so when I did that, I'm like, you know, this looks good. Like this is
Hmm.
kind of what I'm looking for here. So that's
Hmm.
that's when I reached out to you
Hmm.
um to try to figure out this situation.
Yeah.
And it was
Well,
very workable.
and I guess it's probably, I think it's a blessing in disguise in a way that you were
Yep.
able, that you were with me full time, Jack, because to achieve that level as coming out on the other side as a trainer, really having that insight, do you feel like your connection to Kaiser was stronger after going through the process?
Yes, because what it did was, again, like I said before, once we did what we did, and then I understood more about the nature level of dogs and
Hmm.
how they align with nature and how important that is for you as a dog owner to align yourself with nature also, because that's something dogs know and understand and feel. So
Hmm.
if your alignment is not where it needs to be and that dog has a stronger alignment, it's going to the dog's going to kind of look at you lesser, and it's going to try to get over on you more because the dogs are not dumb. Like they're opportunists, and they know how the angles work for them. And so
Yeah.
so knowing the nature aspect of it and aligning yourself with nature, and again, I have to, because I have so many dogs, the way I align myself is I maintain a certain steadiness alignment,
Hmm.
but I adjust my alignment how I handle each of my dogs. Because
Sure.
none of my dogs I have now need that alignment that I had with Kaiser with nature. These dogs don't need that. But if I have a dog that's like needs that, I can elevate it, and I can manipulate my alignment to fit each dog's needs, and it
Mhm.
works out really well. So you can't, like, I can't work my other dogs like I work Kaiser, because that's unfair to them, because
Well,
they're
that's
not
right.
like
So
that.
I was going to say, so the process itself really corresponds to the level of the relationship problem, right? You know, I
Yep,
talk about
yep.
more like
And
it's
you
like
have to know that.
that's right. You have to know, but the ability to even discern or be able to even understand comes from the right foundation to begin with, right? So it's
Yep,
like
yep.
because
That's key.
if you're using treats or you're focused on that kind of in a very superficial way at a response level, you're not going to even be able to even the truth isn't going to be revealed. You're not going to be able to have a
Right,
sense as to what the perception, what where the relationship is even really at. So because kind of I talk about the litmus test, right? So it comes to intentional control, influence, how you're interacting. That's going to reveal truth, right? That's going to reveal,
yep,
that's the test. And like you said, so therefore, yeah, like some dogs, yeah, that's key. Is like, the method or how you interact corresponds to the relationship problem itself. Like for Kaiser,
right,
it's going to look more tyrannical, right? Because he was at such a high level that you had to bring levels of control to say through the crate, through the muzzle, right? Certain type of protocols needed to be in place because we're dealing with a relationship problem that is at a very extreme level.
right.
Whereas, like you said, if you're dealing with other dogs, you may, it's not going to be looking so intense because they're not at that level at all. So the whole thing
No,
about the method itself will fall away. Everything, muzzles come off. Muzzles start to come off, like in Kaiser's case. In fact, we're going to flow into this in a moment here, since we're kind of moving along pretty good anyway. I'm going to show the video of some of the, when you go back home here, and we'll talk about, just the, going transitioning to from the process to certain, really positive things happening between you and Kaiser as you went back home. So let me bring up a couple of video here, and so people can see um, the issue about the change part of this. So let me see. Off leash work, follow up. So here we got video coming up here. I'm gonna play a little of this.
Stay.
So I'll kind of explain, Jack, what is going on here. You see Kaiser behind the kennel here.
so this video here, so I always I had been working more off his muzzle, no leash, and those kinds of things. So this is a control exercise to make him surrender uh to what I want him to do, to just
Bree,
to be able to
I'm on the
uh
seat. Kaiser.
uh be
Oh,
more in control and be more relaxed. And so I use the free command to allow that, and you'll see he'll sit here in a minute. He's ready to eat, but he'll drop like he knows.
yeah,
Stay.
great.
And then that's going through the door. Another exercise. He can't just bolt through the
Drink.
door. So
Sit.
I use these big crates
Stay.
to do the feeding, and then again I'm not letting him eat until I
Stay.
allow him to do it. So more of a control
Bree.
exercise for that.
Wow, I mean, Jack, what an incredible image. Because the thing is, we can look at this and but understanding how the dots connect here, right? Like the process that you went through. So this, for me to see
Yep.
this, right, is amazing. Because it just shows, because it's about the right way. It's about knowing, like you can see a couple getting the right information through how you're interacting with, right? You see the level of agreeableness coming through with those, I talk about those ingredients of intentional control through the leash, influence through the interactions, right? And then
Mhm.
to be able to know, right, that, hey, this is like, this is where trust comes from, right?
Right.
So yeah, fantastic. So he's eating here. Super. Yeah. I'm gonna put another one up here in a minute, but so again, so you left the 6 weeks with me, come out of the other side with the level of knowledge. How much knowledge, like spending 6 weeks with me, I guess, did it feel like overload at a certain point? Did it feel like everything?
Well, I mean, we did a lot very quickly because we were kind of, we didn't.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have spent more time there and done more. I think if we could have done that, but I just wasn't able to. But
Well, it was a situation though, Jack, where it's like it had to happen. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of
right,
like one of those things where it wasn't like planned that way, right? It was like saying, well,
no,
Dale will be able to take Kaiser on a regular board and train, and so it's like an emergency type of situation where like
right.
we have to move into this way. I mean, and
No,
so
and it worked out really well for me because it gave me the tools that I use. So like I was telling you earlier when we were talking, like uh, I I start this at a very young age. So
mhm,
I know now if I would have had these tools when Kaiser was very young and a puppy, there would have been a very big different outcome for him. And
mhm,
so we wouldn't it wouldn't have been all that, but and there wouldn't have been any biting. I use what I learned from you with all my dogs.
yeah,
And so it's an everyday thing. And like for me, like it's funny because people will come over here to my house and I don't my dogs don't get to run out my door, go out into the yard and go to the bathroom. I use when we were working with Kaiser, we would bring him out of the crate, we would take him to a specific spot in your yard, and that's where he had to do his business. And I
mhm,
use that same technique with all my dogs here is I will leash them up. They walk out with me. So, and that's the other thing I tell people, training doesn't need to be this long drawn out thing.
no,
Taking your dogs out for a pee should be
mhm,
a part of training.
yeah,
Bringing your
sure,
dog back in from peeing or going to the bathroom should be a part of training. Anytime I'm playing with the dogs in the yard and they have free time, there's always a process of training going on with that. It's just not free time. I
mhm,
let dogs be dogs, but there's always training in it. Whether I'm getting the dog to do a down, which is a big thing for me, like, because I want that, the outs,
yep,
the sits, the stays, the comes,
mhm,
that's all being done. So for me, there's never a moment that I'm not training dogs, period, from all aspects of it, from sitting in the crate before they eat to being calm. That's how I train. So I'm not like having to take every dog a half hour and take them somewhere and train them because I take the dogs out enough to go to the bathroom to give them time to do their business that we're having a continuous training going on all day long. And I make Becky do the same thing.
mhm.
So it's always ongoing for the dogs. And like I said, what I learned plays out in my puppies. And so when people get a puppy from me,
I was gonna
uh,
say, so
it's
Jack, so we
amazing.
didn't really get in that. So when Kaiser came back in this journey we're talking about, to kind of jump in, you talk about but what happened? So you started breeding the dogs, right? You started to actually,
Yep. Well,
um,
The I wanted puppies from Kaiser,
mhm,
but I I I got busy working with him, and so breeding really didn't take place for a lot longer because
mhm,
I had to fix him first
yeah,
because I had to make sure because it's really weird with the aggressive thing. People say you don't want to breed a dog that's aggressive, but I can't personally find things. I've never found anything specifically that 100% says to me that if you breed a dog that's aggressive, you're going to have a litter of puppies that's aggressive.
that's right, yeah,
But so I needed to do more things. So breeding came later. I had to fix Kaiser. That was my main purpose.
Yeah.
But I had females. Um, I had gotten some females to breed specifically with Kaiser.
Mhm.
Um, and so we just kind of waited on those things, and then later on down the road we did some breedings and
Mhm.
built the kennel up and everything. But yeah, no, it was about fixing him first before I did anything.
Oh, absolutely. And like I said, I don't have pictures here, but your kennel facility is an amazing looking facility. I mean, you put a lot of
Well,
work and time.
I built because, like I said, I don't let the dogs like my training. I don't let the dogs just pee in my yard. So
Hmm.
I built places
Hmm.
uh for them to go, and so we walk them from the back of the house out of their kennels. We'll walk them out to their pens, and
Hmm.
then everybody goes in their pens, and then they do their business, and that's how we work it. And then there's always training going on. Like it's just that's a very important thing. Like I think that um, if you just work it into your daily routine on a daily basis, rather than just open the door up and being lazy and letting the dogs run into the yard and do their business and that's that, and then wonder why you yell at your dog to come in and they're still out in the yard
Well,
goofing around.
I was gonna say, well,
They're
that's a
not
good point.
listening.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jack. So you're saying it's life. It's just like being a parent, right?
Yep,
It's
yep,
like you the moment you make contact, right, it begins, as I talk
yep,
about. So
yep, yep.
it's like every opportunity. So it's because dogs know the real deal. They know whether you're playing kind of both sides of the fence. You're trying to be, emotion on one side and just do what you want to do, but on the other side, you say, well, I'll do Dale or Jack's, approach, and then you got all these problems happening because dogs really is about being the real deal. It is about
Right.
being just like the parent, right?
Yep. And as soon as all my dogs know, as soon as I hit them with the leash, as soon as we put that collar on, as soon as that leash is on, it's business.
Hmm.
Now, don't
Yeah.
get me wrong. The dogs sometimes will be a little on the frisky side and they want to like hop around a little bit.
Hmm.
But then you control that. Like,
Hmm.
no, leash and collar is about business. And it's
Yeah.
about this is the direction we go and that goes on. So
Hmm.
they know that. And so that's how we move through everything. Now, again, once I give them free time and they're off leash, I allow them to have free time and they can play with their ball, whatever they want to do. But again, I'm training when I'm playing also. So
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
kind of one of those things with them. Uh, that's nonstop. Uh, we don't not train at any given point. It's
Yeah.
an ongoing thing. As soon as we put our hands on a dog, poof, it's on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's just good for the dog. It just helps their mind.
Well, it is. I'm gonna say if that's your default setting, how you interact, right? It's like your default parenting style. It's like you have a
Right,
certain way of thinking, right? And like a good friend of mine always said, Dale, when you change how you think, it changes everything. And that
yep,
phrase always stuck with me because it's true. Like you are how you think, you are how you interact. And it's like that's important because dogs are amazing. They're social animals. There's depth of relationship, right? They're amazing
right,
that way. They're different than a bird or a cat, because they connect. It's deeper. And that's the thing about the training process or getting. It's like you're coming in harmony with nature. It's that ability to be able to bond and connect it that way, which means that you're not just meeting your own needs, you're meeting the dog's needs as well.
right. And
What that
you don't need to spend hours upon hours upon
No,
hours
yeah, that's right.
trying to make it work. I think simplicity is the key to it. I think that works with the dogs really well. Like you're not overwhelming them, and you're keeping it short and very direct training. And so
Mhm.
short bursts, I found work the best for them. They gain more from it and they seem to retain it better. And
Yeah.
then they just kind of move through it like that. I try to tell people all the time, like, dude, just put your dog on a leash when you take it out to pee and just
Mhm.
kind of work the dog. And
Mhm.
you're training the dog. Like, that's your training.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
everybody thinks it's like this big, like going to like this big training facility and it's 2 hours of
Mhm.
walking in circles or whatever. And then you're just doing this and doing that. But in reality, it's really not. It's
Yeah.
really not.
Mhm. 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 Yeah, I was gonna
Actually,
say.
it's simple.
Oh yeah, Jack. I mean, you're a testimony to what can be done. Because I said when I talk about what I call the 1 percentile dogs, the dogs of the extreme, right? Which Kaiser, great dog, but it's just about it's not the fault of the dog. It's just about understanding that there's just like some kids need a stronger parent, right? But it doesn't mean
Yep,
you're being
yep.
abusive, right? Like being a stronger parent doesn't mean that that represents abuse. It just means that things have to line up the right way. And so with Kaiser, the situation there, so someone was to come and say to me or whatever, and this is why having you on is amazing. It's great because someone come to me and say, well, it's impossible to overcome aggression with the extreme dog. Well, you're a living testimony that it can be done. You know what I'm saying,
It can
Jack?
be
Like
done.
it's
It
not
can be
easy.
done.
You go, man, it's not, it can
No,
be the most
no,
challenging
it's a
thing,
lot of
right?
work.
It's a lot of
It's
work,
a
yeah.
lot of work, and you have to. It's not for everybody because
Yeah.
it is a lot of work. And it's until you reach a certain point, you're basically working a prisoner. And so there has to be a process there that you have to be willing to understand. If you have to be willing to go to that extreme and do those kinds of things if you want to move that dog in the right direction. But it
That's a
doesn't
good,
happen overnight. They're not going to give into it. It's something you're going to have to earn, and
mhm.
it's definitely as that your style of training. It's that journey that you take with the dog. So if you're not willing to take the journey and be prepared for a long journey, then and I think that's why most people don't fix aggressive dogs because
Yeah, you're
they're
right.
not willing to put that journey into it that could take years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's
And
to give.
And I was gonna say, Jack, it's a good point because the problem is in the dog training world, based on the information on how the majority approach a relationship problem based on this idea that's a learning based exercise we use in treats. Most dog owners, even if they want it to be successful, can't because they're not even getting the right information or right process at the beginning anyway.
Right,
But like you
right,
said, even with the right process, say this system of training, what it represents, doesn't mean it's easy. It can be the most difficult thing that the person ever does. But saying that there's hope in that if you're willing, like you were willing, if you're willing to, move forward and willing to engage and willing to commit, it can be done. But again,
it
you're
can
right.
be.
It's like but again, no illusions here. Because we've been there. It's like it can be the most challenging thing
Yep,
that you can be through. And you're right. It's not for everybody in the sense that in some cases I had a situation with adopting or having to I just knew it wasn't, she had a super aggressive German Shepherd, but I could look at how this is just going to not fit. Like there's no way that dog being adopted by a police department. You know what I'm saying? At least, the hope with the dog, at least having the right information to say, hey, this dog is still, it can be, adoptable. But,
right,
but the core thing here is understanding of the foundation of a process, the right information so you can assess the dog the right way. People getting, again, the right information. So if they're willing, if they're able to be able to move through it, and it's a
right,
journey too. So like I said, Jack, so long as you have the crate, and that's the other thing too, is like understand that it still takes time. You know
yeah,
yourself, even after you spent time with me for 6 weeks full time, going back home again, Jack, you still had work that you had to put into it, right? It's just
yeah,
not,
years.
yeah, so yeah, it's like it's not easy. It can take, it's a process because, but again, this is like, and again, when I look at the Kaisers and Jack Morton situation, it's like the extreme of the extreme. I mean, that's why I want to have you on because it's like, I mean, you can, talk through it. You're able to, identify and able, so it gives you that level of insight because you've been there, you've done it. In terms of rewarding experience, Jack, how would you kind of how would you guess kind of label that in terms of with Kaiser and what you went through and come out the other
Well,
side?
for me, the best part about the whole situation is so before everything I used to walk him in my neighborhood here, and there's a lot of dogs, and they're not controlled dogs, and so there was always issues of him having craziness going on.
Hmm.
And so when we got back from training with you, we I didn't do it for a while. I kept him in a controlled environment, kept working him, and then moved him into a more like my yard and stuff where there was more things going on. So there was more distractions, more things to make me work that out of him,
Mhm.
so that he was focused on me and the here and now and not thinking about other stuff. And then so again, from that point, I slowly moved him back out to our walks out into
Okay.
our neighborhood.
Mhm, mhm.
And walking him through the neighborhood without him having any flashing or reacting, I think for me really was like the most satisfying, knowing that it went the direction that it was supposed to go. Like, because I didn't know if I was going to be able to ever find the right type of style of training that would fit him to get him to understand that we we can be this way and things can be this way and everything's okay. It doesn't have to be so angry and so aggressive kind of process for him. And then once he relaxed, calmed
Mhm.
down and realized that, hey, this isn't so bad. I don't have to be in control. Uh, then yeah, this video here
Okay.
specifically,
Okay. I
uh,
just popped this video up. Just another video kind of showing.
yeah,
It's
he's
a
right
short
next
video.
to me. There's no muzzle there. I'm just using a flat
So here we are,
collar with a
Kaiser. We're out
plastic
doing some
clip.
morning training.
Uh,
I just wanted to.
I'll pause it for a second. Go ahead, Jay. I'll let you talk. I'll keep playing.
yeah, and so this is like a prime example of like, I mean, what I hoped would be a good uh scenario for him to be able to be out and about. Because prior to this, oh no, this this would have
Mhm.
been a bad scene. This would
Yeah.
have been a bad scene. We would have been struggling. I might have gotten bit. So,
Okay.
but yeah, this is the perfect.
So
I
here we are,
couldn't ask
Kaiser.
for
We're
any
out doing
better
some
than
morning
this.
training. I just wanted to do a short video here to show how he's doing. He's doing really well.
Wow, that's
He's come
amazing.
a long ways. We still have to do a little bit of, just a little bit of correction. So
But so you can see how now again talk about now the slack is happening on on the leash. Jack, he seems very relaxed. He's not the intensity is
sometimes with them, but other than that, just a tapping of the leash, nothing more. Come on. But I just wanted to show how he was doing. He's doing really good. Come on. All you gotta do is business.
so yeah. So
Yeah,
amazing. Really I look at that and say, wow. I mean, and don't get me wrong. There's always work. You see, there's always things that.
right. But that's
But
2 years probably, roughly somewhere within that general vicinity
yeah.
after training with you. So that's not like no 3 or 4 months after we got done.
Oh no,
No,
no, no.
a couple of years maybe right in there. After again, it took time to move him into that
Into that,
high
but here,
investment
sure.
merchant or
But
yeah,
but here's how I would qualify that too. He is was a great dog, but most aggressive dog I've ever encountered. So yeah, you're right. I mean, the transition, the ongoing work that you've done with him, but still, based again on his levels, on how extreme that situation was, Jack, that speaks volumes. Even though it
yeah.
took time, but it speaks volumes to see that video, see him walking like that, knowing, you know what I'm saying? So that's amazing.
Yeah, there's some other videos up on my high drive dog training thing where we're going by other dogs
Oh yeah, yeah.
in the neighborhood, and they're barking at him and being all whatever, and he just has nothing to do with it. And that like those were things that never before would have never been it would have been balls on. Like that would have been like straight, like he would have probably pulled me into the fence. Like
Yeah.
it would have been an ugly scene. But in those videos, you see me walking by, I set him. He doesn't even look in that direction. He just about the here and now, about what I want from him. And once we got all that squared away, and once he learned all that, like I said, walking him through the neighborhood like that, without the muzzle, there's no, just a plain old
Mhm.
cheapy $3
Yeah.
flat collar with a plastic clip,
Yeah.
and that's it. And so that's probably, like, for me, like the proudest thing ever, to know that um that it can be achieved if you're willing to put the energy into saving the dog. But again, it comes back to what you as a dog owner are willing to go through.
Oh yeah.
It's
Oh,
it's a long
absolutely.
journey. It's
Mhm.
a long journey. It's a lot of hard work. And it's a lot of wondering about, as a pet owner, what did you do wrong? Why is this the way that it is? Um, there's a lot of things that, and I still to this day don't really know and understand why he was the way that he was. I do think that there's some issues there with, uh, as a breeder, I know that whelping's a very important thing, and I think there's some issues there
Mhm.
on the breeder's end of it.
Yeah.
Um, because I had two females, actually. Well, I have four now from that same bloodline,
Mhm.
and I could show you those dogs, and they have none of that.
Okay.
The only thing you're going to probably do is get completely soaked from getting licks.
Mhm.
So it wasn't a bloodline issue, because a lot of people are trying to tell me that, oh, that's bad blood, that's bad
No,
blood,
no,
and I'm
I've
like,
heard
dude,
that
yeah,
before. Because here's the thing,
yeah,
because things line up. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you talk about genetics, people talk. Listen, if it's a genetic issue with the dog, you're not even going to make it to the front door of the training facility. You're going to know right away. We deal with aggression, issues, how it diminishes through the method and stuff. Well, it's all, you can line it up. And so, but in terms of genetics, in terms of again, talk about the social need of the dog. How I look at that as like some kids need a stronger parent. Some kids
right,
are at a level where you barely, you don't even have to be on them, right? Because they're like so kind of self-aware of their own behavior, right? But some kids are like,
right.
well, push the boundaries of everything, so dogs as
And they'll
social
do
animals.
that. Every dog will do that. I can attest to that. Every dog has their way of, like, testing you.
Yeah.
And they're opportunists, and people, I think, forget about that, because everybody wants to label their dog as a fur baby. But at the end of the day, and I tell everybody, look, I love my dogs. I love all my dogs, and I'll do whatever it takes to give them what they need, to have what they need, and as you know, through Kaiser.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I'm dealing with animals, and
Yeah.
that's the reality of it. And animals, they need a certain process to them to keep them in a line. And
Hmm.
each dog has their own way of being an opportunist to exploit whatever they're going to exploit. That's just the nature of the dog. You
Yeah.
you're not going to change that, because that's
No.
just ingrained in the DNA.
Yeah.
But you can manipulate those things to make things right, and to make it a good thing and not necessarily a bad thing. But if you're letting the dog eat from the table and sit in a high chair, and then you're feeding them human food, and you're carrying them around everywhere, and you're not treating a dog like it's supposed to be treated, then how do you expect the dog to not be a problem?
Well, yeah, because you can see it it's no accident that those who have more of an emotional connection with the dog are
Yeah,
experiencing the most relationship problems. Is that kind of what you see too, Jack? You see the people, like you said, you see the people that are more kind of emotionalizing the dog and not meeting that leadership, not interacting with them and connecting the way that, again, that's going to, meet their social needs. So it's just like being a parent.
right.
That's how I describe it. But good. So, Jack, I guess if somebody wants to, and again, I really appreciate you coming on
Yeah,
to
no
speak
problem.
with me. It's an
Glad
honor
to
to
talk
have
to
you
you.
here. Yeah, and so if someone's looking for advice from you, if it's for training in your area, Jack, or whatever, say if they want to speak to you through, say, Zoom even, because again, I talk about your journey. In fact, right now I'm helping a couple people, that again, one thing from, the experience in this type of entrenchment, this type of aggression, and so again, having on, I think, is a kind of a key moment, so people can really hear from you as to, okay, you've been there, you've experienced this extreme of the extreme situation, you've come out on the other side of it. Like you said, it wasn't easy, but you did it. And so again, if people are looking to contact you, Jack, do you say it's High Drive Dog Training? Is that how they would get in contact with you?
Yeah, they can hit me up to the high drive dog training at gmail.com, or they can hit me up at Morton Rottweilers. I'm on Facebook. And I got a Facebook page, Jack Morton. Yeah, you can hit me up that way. And we can have conversations, whatever. That's not a problem. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely. Oh, great, Jack. And so, yeah, like I said, I want to get you on here, have you on as kind of a regular guest if you're open for it, so we can maybe talk about,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
expand on this a little more, talk about some other things in terms of training and dogs. And again, you're on the breeder side of things as well. So I'm
Right,
sure you have lots of great tips
right.
or advice for people as well, Jack. So I'm gonna, like I said, we'll schedule this maybe next week again, and
Okay.
we'll figure it out. But again, Jack, I really appreciate you coming on. And is there anything else you'd like to say or anything?
No, no, but I definitely want to get down to see you though. I think I'm gonna
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think I'm gonna bring Bosco with me when I can get away, and
Mhm.
maybe come down and do a couple of days with him, just so that we can get together and do some refreshing and
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Dude,
love that.
wait till you see Bosco. You think Kaiser was big? Oh, you ain't seen nothing yet, buddy.
I don't know, Zach. I think I'm getting too old now to go through that again. But anyway, I'm teasing. I'm here to help
Bosco,
you.
see, that's the thing with it. And that's the nice thing about it. Because I learned what I learned from you, and I now have the understanding of how to meet that, how to meet a dog's needs. And
Mhm.
again, each dog is very different that I own, and each dog's needs are very different. So I have to cater to that specific and work on that level. It's not I None of my dogs are like that at all. They're very loving. They want belly rubby dogs.
Mhm.
I always, because of what I learned from you, I incorporate that as soon as, like, if I'm having a litter of puppies or whatever.
Mhm.
It's something we can talk about later. But I
Yeah.
incorporate your training style into my breeding program also,
Mhm.
so that people don't end up with what I had to go through. I don't want that for somebody, um, because that just not workable.
Yeah.
So
No.
again, that style of training, your style of training, uh, I think is the best thing you could do for the younger the dog, the
Mhm.
more they're going to gain from it, the better it's going to be. But that's not to say that you can't take an older dog and make it work too. You can. I just think the younger you get them and the more you start installing that into them,
Well,
it just
yeah,
works out very beautifully. It
because it's
really
like,
does. It's
yeah, because like being a parent, your parenting style starts the moment, right, with the child, right?
Yep.
So it's the same type of thing, right? It's like dogs, they have that need. As soon as they come in and before they even have their first drink of water, they're already kind of assessing, right, where they fit in that way, their role. So, but you're absolutely great point. That's exactly what it is. Yeah. So Jack, thanks again. We'll set up maybe next week. We'll talk again. And again,
Okay.
it's been a privilege having you on, Jack. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure anyone watching this podcast will get a lot out of it as well. So, all right,
Sounds good.
all right, Jack. Thanks very much.
All right, Dale. It's good talking to you.
All right, bye bye.
Bye bye.
Okay, and you can.